Just what are these radiant, creamy apparitions that float through the bar pulpo? Balloon Boy, the German sex tourists, the two undercover cops disguised as three boys with cryptokidism, etc., etc. This is what you see when you throw your own eyeballs across the table like a pair of dice. And this is what you see when you skip your own eyeballs across the surface of Lake Little Lake. The footballers also turn out to be undercover, i.e. cosplaying, quote, cops, unquote. These three disguised as Yaya Touré and Aymeric Laporte. They've gone no farther than the embrasure of the door, where they remain to spy, visible to the audience. Father, I'm seeing double, Gabby. You're so drunk, are you seeing two columns? She drains her shot of gravy, then puts the glass up to her father's left eye. Gabby, is it better like this? Then switches it to his right eye. Gabby, or like this? Every time they fist bump, a bomb explodes in the distance. Meanwhile, in the men's room, a praying mantis chews through the skull of a hummingbird and eats its brain. Waiter, I couldn't help overhearing what you guys were talking about before. Ed McMahon was the spokesman for American Family Publishers, not Publishers Clearinghouse. Gabby, good to know. Waiter, I asked a divine hermit what my new incarnation would be. He kneed me in the groin. I'll be gesund, he laughed. So long as you're healthy. Rimshot, laughter. Father, you're funny, dude. Waiter, I like one finger in my ass and I like money. What can I tell you? Super charming. CMF street soldiers drop their trousers and, from purple penises, piss-arcing streams of boiling blood. And at these moments, the disorder of the piazza can seem premeditated, the product of painstaking composition and staging, like a Jeff Wall photograph. Later, Father, reading from the brochure, quote, so-and-so was a criminally insane fetus. She cannibalized her twin sister in utero. Then her mother threw herself down an escalator in a department store hoping to miscarry, but so-and-so survived, end of quote. Gabby, there were department stores on the island of mutant gargoyles? Father, apparently. It's been one of the nuttiest weeks in the history of Kermunkachunk. You can see it on the faces of everyone in the bar pulpo. Balloon Boy has made a series of inexplicable moves that have put everyone in a difficult psychological position. Obviously, since he plays at the level of an alien superintelligence, there must be some deep combination here that we're missing, and of course the cosmic death bubble is the endgame toward which Balloon Boy has been inexorably maneuvering us all along. Gabby's staring ruminatively out the window, which is filigreed and impastoed to the point of virtual opacity with congealed blood, viscera, and thick globs of vitreous gel. Gabby, you don't really like Ichiro, do you? Father, Gabs, he drives around in a red Formula One Ferrari. It's a single-seat, open cockpit, mid-engine racing car. Where are you supposed to even sit in that thing? Gabby, I squeeze in with him. It's really not a problem, Dad. Father, it bugs me. Gabby, I know it does. Get over it. It's really fine. After a moment, Father, he reminds me a little of Eric in Phantom of the Opera. Gabby, he gets that a lot. Father, what happened to his face? How was he so hideously disfigured? Gabby, there was an explosion of some kind at the clandestine military laboratory under the Kamundake volcano near Ibusuko in southern Kyushu during experiments that Ikiro and his research group were conducting in the development of a gamma-ray laser-directed energy weapon. That's all I know. Gabby turns her gaze to the window again, to the piazza for a moment. Gabby, some of my friends think that there are, compatibility issues. I'm a petite, soft-spoken young woman from Brooklyn who makes ethnographic films and loves books and cooking and puppies, etc., etc. And he's this deranged, grotesquely disfigured Japanese weapons scientist. Father, I couldn't disagree more. In fact, I think any halfway decent matchmaking algorithm would almost instantly pair those very personality profiles. My only problem with Ichiro is his car. Gabby, this feels so much to me like that scene in Late Spring. It's eerie. Father, do you know how in the folktale the father obliquely reveals his own impending death to the daughter by telling her another folktale about another dying father? Gabby, yes, of course. Father, so when you tell me that this feels eerily like that scene in late spring that involved Shukichi and his daughter Noriko's last trip together before her wedding, are you obliquely telling me that you and Ichiro are getting married? Gabby, rolling her eyes, i.e. not this again. Dad, seriously? Father shrugs. I just wish he wasn't picking you up on the piazza. It's so dangerous out there with all the shooting and the stabbing and those crazy musical theater kids gouging out people's eyeballs. The floating casino's so much safer, so much quieter. Just the divine hermits, those levitated antinomian mystics, endlessly shuffling their lettered tiles. I wish he was picking you up there. Can't you text him and tell him to pick you up there? Gabby, I'll be fine, Dad. Father, I worry. What can I tell you? It's what I do. If I text you and you don't respond, I figure, okay, you're cooking or you're in the shower or something. But then if I text you a second time and you still don't answer, I just assume you've been kidnapped and sold into sex slavery or beheaded in some boiler room or dissolved in a vat of sulfuric acid. That's just where my mind goes. Gabby, do you think something might have happened to you when you were young that gave you this sense of impending catastrophe? Father, oh, absolutely, and I know exactly what it was. Gabby, what? Father, it's not something I've ever felt completely comfortable talking to you about. Gabby reaches across the table and grasps the father's hands in hers. Not without wings may one reach out for that which is nearest. Gabby, tell me, please. The father takes a deep breath, exhales, and begins. But at that very moment, there's a sustained fusillade of automatic weapons fire out on the piazza that renders the father and Gabby completely inaudible to us and then strangely subsides just as he finishes his account of the incident. Gabby, her eyes welling with tears. Oh my God, what did you do? Father, I was 5 years old when this happened? But I realized it was my brain or a significant portion of my brain and I picked it up. And I remember somehow having the wherewithal to sort of cradle it in my hands and walking in this sort of stiff-legged way. And I brought it up to the teacher. And there was this loud sound in my ears like the strumming of a zipper. But loud as fuck, Gabby points to screen. Like the strumming of a zither. Not a zipper, a zither. Father, squinting up at the screen. And there was this loud sound in my ears like the strumming of a zither, but loud as fuck. I'll never forget that sound as long as I live. Gabby, what happened to the kid? Was he like arrested? Father, I'm pretty hazy on the exact sequence of events that day. What I do know is that he was eventually put in the Matawan State Hospital for the criminally insane. And when I was about 18, it was the summer between my freshman and sophomore year at Brandeis, I drove up to Matawan and visited him. Gabby, are you fucking kidding me? Father, nope. And he apologized. Gabby, he apologized? Father, yep. And I was basically a more fatty, bro. You know, love your fate. Gabby, meaning what in this context? Father, meaning if he hadn't done that to me, I probably wouldn't have become a writer. I probably never would have written Infinite Jest. Gabby, cracking up. You didn't write Infinite Jest. Father, the point I'm trying to make is that my life would have been completely different. I never would have become an ethnographer. I wouldn't have met and married Mom. There wouldn't be you. We wouldn't be sitting here, the two of us in Kermunkachunk right now. You know what I mean? So I was like, there's nothing for you to apologize for. They fist bump, click glasses. Gabby and the father relapse and drown their shots of gravy. Everybody's having such a good time. There's art up all over. But is it art that merely looks like art? Meanwhile, in the men's room, someone's left what looks like half a pound of ground groundhog in the middle of the floor. Now it's the father who's withdrawn into the fixity of his own inner world. The waiter takes something out of his pocket and offers it to Gabby. Waiter, would you like one? Gabby, what is it? Waiter, a divine Hermit. They're good, actually. Little Gabby, who once used the word boppy for both Barney and flour, is immediately reminded of the optometrist's lozenge. It's one of those moments when what we're seeing quivers, bends, rips, expands, swirls, disappears, and then reappears, puzzle-like shapes flying apart and then snapping back together. A triceratops is overheard on a wiretapped phone conversation, telling a stegosaurus, "I think an asteroid might have just hit the Earth." Father, I'm the last of the male laners, you know. Don't take Akira's name. Promise me, stay a laner. She rolls her eyes and changes the subject. Gabby, you know what my favorite time with you was when I was little? Her eyes fill with tears just thinking about it. It was when... fill in the blank. Fill in the blank with one of your favorite times with your dad when you were little. Something incongruously déclassé, like Axe body spray for men, wafts in from the piazza. Sequenced pulses of radio frequency electromagnetic radiation, each lasting just a few milliseconds, reach the waiter's sensors from sources at extragalactic distances. He approaches the father, addressing him in a mysterious prearranged code. Waiter. Homeboy wore combat boots to the beach. The father gets up, furtively slips the waiter 2 crisp $100 bills, and heads, we presume, to the men's room for what will be an unusually prolonged period of time. According to the brochure, the robotic insects that infest the men's room of the Bar Polpo possess biomimetic electrochemical compound eyes with a high-density array of perovskite nanowires mimicking the photoreceptors in the arthropod Ommatidium. We might say of these mechanomorphic vermin that what Thomas Hardy, in, quote, "An August Midnight," end of quote, says of the soothsaying insects that visit him in his study. Quote, "They know earth secrets that know not I," end of quote. A fat white rat with buck teeth and a long pink tail winks insinuatingly at Gabby, who's still seated alone in the booth. We hear what sounds like the arrow transpiercing Toshiro Maifun's neck in the final scene of Throne of Blood. Several days pass, but backward. Then time lurches forward as if a higher being has commandeered the remote control. Gabby, a being who's higher than we are? LOL. Several minutes later, as fate would have it, the following communique is posted on social media in a blatant act of sock puppeting designed to disguise the actual source of responsibility. At 22:45 hours on 26 June 2035, the Roja Vetiver Pour Homme Parfum Cologne Brigade of the Chilesian Mafia faction ended the pathetic and corrupt existence of Professor Frank Sfogliatella. His body may be found on the piazza outside the Bar Polpo, and the father finally returns to the booth. Gabby, dude, you were gone a long time. I was going to send the waiter in. Father, I know, I fell asleep on the toilet. They both crack up. It's only then that Gabby notices that her father is covered in blood. Gabby, what happened to you? Father, I have a bleeding hemorrhoid. Gabby, you never told me you had a bleeding hemorrhoid. Father, well, you know, I didn't want you to worry, but I had this remarkable dream. I find a white cue ball in a cupboard, and then I'm out on this great verdant field, and there off in the distance, some 50 yards or so, is my grandfather, Raymond. And I throw the cue ball to him. We used to play catch together all the time when I was a little boy. And as the white ball traces this beautiful parabolic arc against the blue sky, I'm feeling this slight concern that he might assume it's a baseball, which is considerably lighter than a pool ball, and that the heavier ball is going to hurt his hand. But he catches it so gracefully, adroitly drawing it back as he cups it in his hand to sort of deplete its force. And then he looks across the expanse at me and he smiles. And it was just this numinous moment. The temporal distance, the 50 years since his death, has been transposed into the spatial distance, 50 yards, which has collapsed with the conveyance of that white ball. The dream was telling me that across this impossible divide that separates the dimension of the living from the dimension of the dead, we can still make contact. We can still play catch. And it just gave me this transcendent feeling of solace and continuity. Of course, the father hadn't really fallen asleep on the toilet. He hadn't actually been in the men's room at all. He'd concocted this dream as a way of allegorically reassuring Gabby that they'd never really be apart. Just then, the two undercover cops who've been surveilling the bar from the embrasure of the front door approach the booth in which Gabby and the father are seated. Undercover cop number 1 to the father. Is Gugoig, father to waiter. Any idea what that means? Waiter. It really depends on the context. There are several possibilities. It could mean, did you know that a hippopotamus can bite an unwary tourist completely in half with a force of 2,000 pounds per square inch? It could mean, have you ever seen the movie Niagara with Joseph Cotton, Marilyn Monroe, and Jean Peters? And it could mean, can I see your passport, please? The father rolls his eyes and gives him a look, like, really? He produces his passport and hands it to undercover cop number 1. Beneath the table, he clutches at the agate pommel of his dagger. Gabby follows suit, producing her passport and handing it to undercover cop number 2, who opens it and proceeds to scrutinize each of her enumerated aliases. Undercover cop number 2. Higgsley? Gabby, yes. He looks at Gabby, then down at the passport photo, and then back at Gabby. He does this with each nickname. Undercover cop number 2. Minnie Mizuho. Gabby, yes. Undercover cop number 2. Mitzi? Gabby, yes. Undercover cop number 2. Yanni? Gabby, yes. Seemingly satisfied, he hands Gabby back her passport. But undercover cop number 1 pockets the father's passport. Undercover cop number 1, now in English. Could you come with us, please? The bar is suddenly completely silent, like, what the actual fuck? All eyes on the father as he slides out of the booth and stands a bit unsteady on his feet, and the 2 undercover cops escort him from the bar pulpo and out onto the piazza. It's a moment of overwhelming perplexity and consternation, hurling everyone into the deepest fixity of their own inner worlds. Gabby, what's going on? Waiter, what's going on? You don't know. Your father just fucking killed a guy out on the piazza. Gabby, killed a guy? What guy? Waiter, the professor. Someone puts Mariah Carey's Obsessed on the jukebox, but it skips, maddeningly repeating the same 3 opening bars for the rest of the book. Waiter, oh my God, he fucking shivved the guy like 100 times. That was personal, man. He tore him to pieces like a wolf that rends and bolts raw flesh. What happened out on the piazza between the father and the professor was like a scene. No, it is a scene. From an ultra-violent Don't Let This Robot Suck Your Dick Productions martial arts action film. Waiter, your father was in a frenzy, his lips flecked with foam, and he charged the professor, slamming him down so hard it made the ground quake. And the professor, back broken, writhing, reached out to your father, touching his grizzled cheek, and cried, "What are you doing? You invited me to Kermunkachunk to help you and your daughter conduct research. Is this the collegial greeting I deserve?" And your father, like a ravenous, murder-breathing beast, sunk his teeth into the soft white flesh of the professor's belly, tearing out his glistening entrails. The professor was stabbed in the chest multiple times, as he himself had preordained in his prolegomemnon. Quote, "The ineffable and ultimately quixotic love between this father and this daughter will pierce your heart. It will literally stab you in the chest multiple times," end of quote. Waiter, your father skewered the professor straight through the mouth, his dagger raking through up to the hilt, under the brain to split his glistening skull. Teeth shattered and both nostrils spurting convulsive sprays of blood, and a dark mist came swirling down across his eyes, his soul hurled down to the International House of Death. It's obvious that the violence the waiter's describing is turning him on. His erection distends the fabric of his trousers like a coal stoker's shovel. He's super charming, etc., etc. Waiter, and then your father enucleated the professor and ate his eyeballs, this man whose own mother had been eaten by an anaconda, and the sky shuddered and purpled. Gabby, or we should say the ethnographer in Gabby, is skeptical about the authenticity of this passage in the folktale concerning the father's ingestion of the professor's eyeballs, suspecting it to be a, quote, spurious interpolation, end of quote. In other words, the product of the waiter's improv or riffing. The waiter, or we should say, the stage door manner in the waiter, couldn't help but toss in that embellishment to take his scene to the next level. There's an old Chilesian folk saying, Siftbo, Migs milk Vijignogcum, Wolfsk Digla, Inioloscum, Yitzif Sundifat, Wolfsk Digibil, which means literally, quote, you can forcibly evict the waiter from stage door manner, but you can't laparoscopically excise stage door manner from the waiter, end of quote.